saw questions. Yeah, it's really a comment. It could be a question in terms of the essence, the significance of the past of St. Gedalia. I saw a commentary that the reason we asked this because what happened historically after Gedalia was assassinated, Yirmiyahu, he told the people who were remaining there, don't leave, don't go to the stay there. Because people started to trickle in from other places, so they didn't listen. Annihilated, we were there when we were there. So the net result was that for 2 decades there was no Jewish presence. So that's the reason that the commentator said, and he underscored it by saying, 50 years ago, a time of Russian was collecting funds, and some of the well-to-do donors came to him and said, "Why are you sending the funds to Israel? I mean, you're no scholars over there, you're Zionists, you don't believe in anything, you're just craftsmen and businessmen. Why don't you just give it to the Jews and the bottom of Eastern Europe?" So he said no. And he went back to, he said, as long as we have a presence there, we have to support it. That's the...
So here we're now up to the second page on here. There's a be'ikvase de Mashiach shai v'tshuv mitoch Yisulim. When we are in the period just before the Mashiach, then Hashem will bring the redemption, even if the teshuvah of Am Yisrael is on account of the suffering. It means even though spontaneously the vast majority of Jews, they would not think much of trying to understand who is God, nor why I'm a Jew. And the only reason they've got an interest in anything Jewish or in Israel is because of all the anti-Semitism. And they feel the anti-Semitism is a way, forces them to remain Jews. So that's prophesied in the words of the sages when they say tshuva will come from suffering. And in particular is this passage in Sanhedrin where Rabbi Lezer says, Im is osim Yisrael tshuva nigalim v'im lav ein nigalim. The redemption which is prophesied so frequently in the Chumash, the prophets, will only come through Teshuvah, and as long as Am Yisrael don't do Teshuvah, they won't be redeemed. Rabbi Yeshua says, what are you going to tell me? If it should happen that the people of Israel don't do Teshuvah and are not going to be redeemed, the redemption will take place in any case. But how will it take place? HaKadosh Baruch, it won't be spontaneous. HaKadosh Baruch Mamed LaMelech. Hashem will set up. Melech doesn't only mean a king, it means a tyrant, a statesman. Shegezerotav kashot kehomon. His decrees are as harsh as those of Haman. And then Yisrael will do teshuvah, just like they did in the days of Haman. He was going to kill every Jew. And so what happened? It's explicitly, Esther said, she gave the command, let all the Jews gather together, but Tzumo alai, the out of Luva Tishtu. So you see the two things. Tzumo means in prayer, 3 days of prayer, and also don't eat and drink, fasting. And then they were saved. And it's very interesting, this, because on the basis of what it says in the Megillah, when there's been a situation of enormous crisis, then also the great Gedolim have said we have to have a 3-day fast. And this happened when Hashem, unfortunately, raised Hitler to his great power, and Hitler decided he's sending his strongest army when he really had to defend himself against the Russians. But he said it's more important, and the Mufti of Jerusalem influenced him, we must make sure that there are no Jews left in Palestine. And then the Mufti of Jerusalem, he had arranged, he had a whole list of all the Jews who were at that time in Palestine, and they had prepared death camps for them, probably also with gas. So Rommel, who was the strongest general, he made swift progress and went through North Africa, through Egypt. He conquered areas for the Nazis, and he came to Sinai, and he had a huge army at Sinai. Only a small army of the Allies, led by Montgomery, who were stationed in that area, in the area, to stop the progress of Rommel's army. And it's almost sure the Rommel's army is far stronger than the battalion of Allies that were found to defend the British mandate, Palestine. Yeah. So what happened? The rabbi said 3 days fasting, 3 days prayer. And what happened in those 3 days? The army of Rommel, they became completely paralyzed, couldn't do anything, because there was a technical error with the water pipes that were to provide drinking water in the desert. Instead, they provided seawater. The army suffered from dysentery, and they had to retreat. So we had again 3 days. So this is, but it's not. So we have this concept of hormone is important.
Miracle.
It's important for today as well.
It was a miracle.
Yeah. Anyway, so Rav Dessler explains this a bit more. The Maral asked the Kasha, Diksha Maral, Alogam Dasu B'Shua Lile Isurim Osim Teshuva. What do you mean? What's the difference? What's the Machloika say? The difference of opinion. Rabbi Shua also says they have to do Teshuva. Doesn't make any difference what brings the Teshuva. If it's on the love of Hashem, or it's because they're threatened with destruction. Through suffering, the Teshuva. Imken Modehu she'enig lem lo Teshuva. So also agrees that the people of Israel, in order to be redeemed, must do Teshuva. The Bible answers the 2 types of Teshuva. One is Bar Kocham, one is Teshuva, which the people are forced to do. Lechad me'atzmam, the other one which they do of their own accord. It's a world of difference between
voluntarily versus involuntarily.
Yeah. So Pia Dvar, so he explains it. Yesha Isurim Maksim Damuta. So it's now that's in his usual fashion. He analyzes it on the basis of understanding the mind of man. His investigation of the inner psychological reactions of the human being very deep. He says sometimes when you suffer, then the suffering improves the person's character. So therefore it's machzil mutar. As a result of the suffering, mit oreh lahaket emru, he arouses himself to recognize the truth. What does it do, the suffering? Meshabrim et adam. It breaks up the material ambitions of the human being, so that his desires are weakened because of all the troubles that come upon him. But what happens with many people? The suffering goes away, Netashuvatav and Kodem, then the desires come back as they were before, physical desires. And here are the notes at the bottom. He brings here another statement of Tesla in the name of his father-in-law, Nachum Ze'ev, the son of the Rosh Yeshivat of Kelm, that Gam Yisura Gehinnom, we should know even the suffering that's referred to, which comes in Gehinnom, Einom Gomem El Shiyake Shanyanim Shemikodem Chashak Bem Ein Klum. They're brought to a person so he should recognize that what he so much desired before the Gehinnom, it's really worthless. There's no real value. That if he would have, again, the abilities to have desire like a person Gehinnom, there's no possibility neither of food or drink nor of other physical pleasures. He sees they don't exist. And therefore he comes purified. But if he would have them in front of him, he would still have those desires. Because the essence of freedom of choice does not become nullified through seeing the vanities of this world. A person might see the vanities of this world and still he will say, I like drugs, or I like alcohol, or I like physical pleasures. That's the first type, and that first type of the way in which suffering purifies a person because it breaks his tavot. But if the suffering goes away, the tava comes back. But the second type is different. It's a partial tshuva. No, then he said, no, he says this is B'china Shniya. In other words, it says there are two types of tshuva. The tshuva that comes of its own, that's without suffering. Not because of suffering. A person recognizes the truth that he's got to be a moral person, and he's got to allow his spiritual self not to become suppressed by his physical desires, but the other way around. But this B'china Shniya is still a partial teshuva. The one who would go back to his desires, if the suffering goes away, it's still a partial teshuva. At the time when he suffers, he doesn't sin. When he's sick, lying in bed, and he can hardly eat or drink, so he doesn't have any desire for food. Goes away from him. A broken man. But when it goes away, gets back his appetite and everything, and he says, oh yes, I want my favorite foods. I want to drink, I want drugs or whatever. So therefore it's not called Nefshah Tshuva Amitzit, not called true Tshuva, because the evil is still rooted in his heart. And it's not really nullified. So in other words, the machloket between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua is that there is a partial teshuvah that comes as a result of suffering. And so it's like this. He says in the same light, even Gehinnom will bring a person to teshuvah, but only a partial teshuvah. Even when the soul is in Gehinnom, because the inner self is still the nefesh. I would like to add a remark to this, which occurred to me yesterday. Every morning we say, first of all, do you have any questions on this?
About the soul in Gehinnom. Let's say you had a Russia who is captured by the Germans and he was tortured in concentration camps. And I read there's some Jews in the shtetls in Eastern Europe, they took their garments and they cursed the Hashem and everything because of what the Nazis were doing to them. So it seems to me that if some of them deserved Gehenna, they didn't go there because they experienced Gehenna here, and therefore they went there.
Yes, certainly.
Is that possible? Is that?
Yes, it's mentioned in the Boruch. The biggest Yerushalayim, when they had enormous suffering, and they saw it, they became tzaddikim.
Yeah.
Many instances in the Gemara. But I want to go more deeply in the following. Every morning we say, Elokai neshamas sato bi toheri ato berosa ato yitzavim facto b'kirbi. You, Hashem, have breathed the soul inside me. Then we say, please, Hashem, look after my soul. So look after it. And in the future, Tchias HaMesim, you're going to give it back to me. So I was thinking over, who is the me? Isn't the me the neshama itself? That was my question. So the answer is as follows. Yes, very good.
Yeah?
Yes?
It's maybe the nefesh. What we in this world feel as our me is actually only the nefesh. The neshama must be
let
higher.
me explain what you're saying. On those same lines. Very good. A person, you ask him, who am I? Now, many people say, I am the person, and I love life. Yeah, I love life. I love nice food. I love wine. I love women. I love all different things. I love life. That's me. Yeah? You're going to tell me I've got a soul. I don't know what the soul is. I've met this people. There's no such thing as the soul. What do we do? What's the soul? Something without a body? Don't know such a thing. I've got a body, and the body influences my life and gives me instincts. Yeah? Like all human beings have instincts. So some favor drugs, some favor alcohol, some favor women. They're all different things that people like. And some people, they don't even not know it's sinful, but they say, my life is a material life. I love money, I love activity, I love sport. Something's sport's quite innocent. I love actually, in a certain sport I like myself. That's me. When people are talking about the soul, well, it's really beyond me. Yep. So, to be truthful to ourselves, all of us have that bechina, we have that aspect. That means we always say there's three levels to the soul. There's the nefesh, ruach, and the neshama. And you explain it like this. Ruach also means direction and wind that goes in different directions. So the Yetzer Tov, that is the neshama. The Yetzer Hara is the material self, which can also be used for good. And Ruach means which direction you take in life. Jews try to direct your Yetzer Hara to go serve the Yetzer Tov, or do you ask the Yetzer Tov to serve the Yetzer Hara? That's the Ruach. And that's in our choice. The person can choose which direction to go. Yeah, I mean, the speaker, yes, they also, that's what's behind all these saying. I don't know if anybody could understand, brought so many sources, but that was behind part of what he was talking about. So therefore, that explains the kind of neshama. The truth is, a person's task in life is to make the neshama, which is the breath of Hashem, which is eternal, and to allow that power to rule over the Yetzer Hara. Yeah? You can make sure that our Yetzer Hara, which is myself in one way, it should serve you, serve Hashem. And where's Hashem? In the soul. And I'll add to this. If I can add to it for Yom Noron, from also Rav Dessler gave me that insight 100 years ago, that when we say Le'elo, Le'elo. So the deeper pshat is that he used to say, whatever is further up is further inside, more inside, deep inside. Deep inside every person is the neshama elokit, is the spark of Hashem, yeah, which Hashem, the nitzotz of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which He put into each person, which creates the tension to the Yetzer Tov, the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Tov is by Pav Nishmat Chayim. So it says beginning of the Chumash. So the breath of Hashem, and that breath of Hashem remains forever, doesn't it? It was there, even when there's no body. But we're now in this human life and this globe, where the neshama enters the body and becomes part of it. It's there, deep down. And the whole avodah we've got to do is to preserve its purity. So it is pure in itself, but to let the purity enter also into the Yetzer Hara, to also become pure. So I think that's it's very often it's applied to the situation. A person doesn't know it's got a neshama until Olam Hazeh and all the attractions which are part of the motivation, the Yetzer Hara, they get broken down. A person was a millionaire and became a pauper. Yeah? So his whole mind was previously in the billionaires, in the Forbes, the billionaires, and now it's all gone. Yeah? So I knew that one billionaire I knew, he became a Holocaust survivor. So he was supposed to be Baal Tzedakah. And then he committed suicide. He was in his yacht, and he committed suicide.
In his what? In his yacht?
Huh?
Boat, yacht.
Yacht?
Yacht is a boat.
Boat, yeah, ship.
Sailboat.
I met him before.
Sailboat.
That's why his widow,
She's a Catholic woman.
Catholic.
His daughter, she likes jewelry, but I don't know whether she actually converted. I'm not sure. She speaks three
Well,
languages.
he's Christian. He married a Christian. Who's some story? Maxwell. What's his first name? Anyway, I met him a few times. David would tell me.
He's Hungarian.
Give me a shoe. One? Yeah.
He spoke about 7 million. He spoke about 6 or 7 languages.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was very nice. But this was it. His whole life was money. Yeah.
Robert Maxwell.
Not Robert. That's Robert Maxwell. His whole life. Really, he came with the Holocaust. He had a certain background, but he left. The Holocaust. He left it all. So, and his widow became very much involved in anything to do with the Holocaust. So this is sometimes suffering. It breaks your vision of the Yetzer Hara. And then you say, well, and I suppose the guilt feels got over him, so he said, well, my whole world is gone. And I don't know what you want to do. Perhaps his business wasn't so honest as well at the same time. So he committed suicide. Not the only one, it's well known.
Some say he worked with the Mossad.
Yeah.
And all kinds of things.
Yeah. Anyway, so we go down to the last paragraph on this page. Tochen v'tachlis ha'onshim. This is an important principle. The whole content and purpose of all punishments. She yilmad adam mehem. A person should learn from them. But he said every punishment that comes, and a person by punishment, it generally does feel closer, a little bit, like we described. But the purpose of it is to bring to Teshuvah Gemura. It should bring to complete Teshuvah. V'yetiv should improve his paths in truth, as has happened as well. He said the most wicked people, they were suffered, and case of the Gemara. One was a traitor to the nation, right? And he joined the persecutors, the Greek persecutors, the Jews. And then when he recognized the terrible suffering that might come upon him, so he brought himself to his death, and his soul was brought to the highest level, because he recognized that whatever he tried to reach in this world was nothing. The other one speaks about a very immoral person who wanted to chase the most beautiful woman in the world, and he paid enormous monies to get to her. And then when he realized that because he had some background, that he was destroying his whole life and giving everything spiritual that he had over to his physical desires, so he changed. And then he, in the end, he died. When his soul went up to heaven, some people acquire their spiritual world in one moment. But there is a fear, says it. Sometimes a person, when suffering comes upon him, then he will become more humble because of them, not because of the tshuva. He can't stand the enormous burden of the suffering anymore. And therefore, the main purpose for which the suffering brought him is nullified. Therefore, Boruch, what does he do? He strengthened the heart of the wicked person that he should not give in to the suffering, unless he's reached the level that he learns to do complete teshuvah. So he says this, this because we have learned this Gemara on this matter. I mentioned also on Shabbat. As far as the redemption, this applies to the individual, and also applies in a certain way to the whole of Am Yisrael before the Mashiach will come. In other words, if, as the Gemara says, it all depends. For the Geula, if we've reached the time of Be'ita, that means the final time of the redemption, where Hashem has in mind that the whole pattern of man in this world will change, then the Mashiach will come, even a generation that is totally guilty. That means there's no hope for complete teshuvah. So the Boruch will redeem his people even to nullify the evil inclination through suffering. Therefore they'll stop sinning, and then he will reveal his glory through the Mashiach, who will teach them the true path of life. But this is only for the final Geula. That's at the end of all the suffering and all the corruption. But before that happens, HaKadosh Baruch will strengthen his love and kindness, the power of the evil inclination, that will not allow the sinner to leave aside his sin unless he has complete teshuvah. So then it becomes Achishena. If we'll do complete teshuvah, then to reach the level of we'll do teshuvah even through our own motivation, then the Geula can come early. It will come Achishena. It will come even tomorrow. So in other words, it describes a generation that's totally guilty. There's no more hope. They'll go in the way of step by step to reach complete teshuvah. And therefore there's no purpose in continuing the golos. Now HaKadosh Baruch will bring a king whose decrees and threats are just like Haman, and then they do teshuvah and bring them back to that correct path. Now the question is, if they already go in the right path of the teshuvah, what does it mean to bring them back lamuta? What does it mean?
Lemutav?
Lemutav means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring the people back to the right path. But if they've done complete teshuvah, they themselves come on the right path. So he says, no, it's like this. When there's a decree as severe as that of Haman, their heart becomes broken inside, and they daven to Hashem. So when a Kohen sees that they're really asking to do teshuvah, but they're too weak to go up on the ladder, then he will bring them up himself. He'll bring the Mashiach with enormous revelations and miracles, and that's why the sages say when David will only come in a generation that's totally innocent, that will of its own accord merit to kill Mashiach, or it will be so wicked that there's no purpose in continuing the Golos. Of course, one of them will bring it, also he'll bring the Mashiach. But really we have here a bit of hope for the present generation, because it's quite true for one part of the people, a minority of the people, so at least they're trying to do teshuvah even without suffering. Even the Jews, they don't suffer by themselves, and they have a very happy life, and they try their best to keep the whole Torah, and they try to do teshuvah, especially in the 10 days of penitence, and therefore they do teshuvah of their own. But for the majority of the people, that we can say today it's both. There's a group that's kula zakah, there's a group that's kula chayah. The others, there's no purpose in continuing the suffering. So what's Hashem do? Hashem sees the suffering has brought them to at least break their hearts, to feel that the physical life is more or less meaningless. And of course, one said, okay, you haven't reached the stage you keep the mitzvahs. You don't keep any mitzvahs. But you realize that your materialistic ambitions will not work for you as a Jew. Of course, Boruch will bring so many miracles that you bring them back through the miracles. So let's hope that's what will happen. And we'll have a return of all Am Yisrael to bring us back. So I want to wish everybody a Machasim Torah.
Amen.
And ask for forgiveness if I offended you in different ways through my remarks. So I want to thank you also. Today's I was so pleased and thank those who helped. We shall have a proper slichus. Yeah? At least we had one on the last day, but tomorrow is come up no slichus.
There's no slichus tomorrow.
Yeah, very free.
Very short.
We start at the same time, 4 to 7, but it's very free.
Rabbi, I have a question. Why?
No, I
We
don't
have time?
have time.
Okay.
Because of the requirements of the doctor. So,
Shkoyha. תודה רבה. מה, בחתימה טובה לכולכם.
Fatima Tova, thank you very much.
050.
Oh, it's the same one with his private, right?
Yeah.
Southern Education. Where is it?
0512 00.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like, which carrier is it? 050?
It was telephone, but now it's hold on, but you get to keep the same number.
Oh. So, I mean, when my wife measured, it's 100 inches, where it's just 310 centimeters. It's too.
Very much like to me. Get this connection.